Welcome to the Patterson Parent University Learning Table. Here at the Learning Table, we present and talk about educational issues that impact you and your children. Today, we are going to be talking about the upcoming PARCC assessment. The PARCC stands for Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers. Students in grades 3 through 11 take the assessments in both mathematics and English based on the Common Core state standards. Today we have guests from the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, and I'm going to ask them if they would introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what you do.
I'm Amanda Kopesky. I'm a school-based language arts literacy supervisor, and I work with various schools in the district with teachers and students.
Hi, my name is Diana Slopey. I am a math school-based supervisor, and I also work with teachers, students, to work on skills in mathematics.
We also have with us the Department of Special Needs.
Hi, I'm James Albert, supervisor of child study teams. I work with child study teams and assist them in developing accommodations for the PARCC assessment so special needs students could participate in the PARCC assessment as well.
And we also have our director from assessment.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Parra, Director of Assessment. I oversee the testing for the district and ensure that your children receive their accommodations if they are special needs children, and that they're being assessed at the correct grade and the correct assessment.
And last, we have one of the leaders of our elementary school buildings.
Hi, my name is Nicole Booker. I am the principal of school number 13, home of the Jaguars.
Go Jaguars.
So we want to just talk to you a little bit about the PARCC. So let me ask our CNI team, what is PARCC and what does it aim to assess?
PARCC is a standardized test where students in grades 3 through 11 are assessed on language arts literacy and math skills.
Okay, and in math, they'll be assessed on their content as well as their reasoning, critical thinking skills, and how they model different kinds of word problems.
Hey, what are our schools doing to prepare for this year's PARCC assessment?
Well, a lot of our students are participating in the Saturday program that helps. In my building in particular, we've allowed children, we've added in our schedule computer time. So students are working with the computer and learning all of the techniques they will need in order to successfully manipulate or operate inside of the test. They're also practicing PARCC-like questions during our classroom time. So we think our students will be prepared.
Well, why do you think it's important that you give the children in your building additional time on the computer?
Well, because it's a computer-based assessment, and it requires them to use the mouse to go to drop-down menus to pull down different tools they're going to need in order to solve the test. Solve the questions on the test. So the more time they have to practice, the better we'll think they'll do. We want them to be assessed on what they know, not on their computer skills.
And all students have accessibility features that are embedded into the program already, so they have to become used to them while practicing for the PARCC coming up. So when they come to take the test, they're familiar with all the features that are available.
Correct. So for example, you have a highlighting tool. So as they're reading the passages, they're able to highlight specific information that they feel that's important to them. They have a calculator that's available to them that's calculator active. They have a graphing calculator for the upper grades, the scientific calculator for the middle schools, and it is available to them through the system itself.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that we are doing is we are using PARCC released items from previous year's testing, so students can become familiar with the kinds of questions, such as the multiple selects, the drag and drops, and things like that. So that way they're familiar with them.
There's also the PARCC website and the DLM website that parents could go visit to see questions that are going to be on the test. So even at home, that there could be become knowledgeable about the questions being asked.
Johnson, maybe you can just explain to us, what is DLM?
DLM is dynamic learning maps. It's for severely cognitively disabled students. So the child is unable to participate in PARCC for mathematics and language arts, they'll be able to participate through dynamic learning maps.
But there are certain criteria that the child
Correct.
study team has to take into consideration upon planning for the DLM, and that has to be taught using the DLM features
Correct.
going into the assessment.
Yes.
Okay. What should parents and students do to better prepare for this year's park? You know, we have spring break coming up, and then when we come back, we're back a week, and then on April 16th, we have the park. So, you know, what can parents do to help their children, and what can we tell the students to do?
Well, actually, as a parent myself, and I have a third grader who's going to be taking it for the first time, I think it's important to just have a conversation with them, talk about it, ease if you have a child that sometimes has test anxiety, make sure on the day of the test they get enough rest, that they eat, you know, breakfast. Like we mentioned before, you can go on to the actual park website and the Patterson Public School website, and they give you tips on what you can do, and just really just have a conversation with them and try to ease any anxiety they may have.
And special needs students are not exempt from this assessment.
Correct.
All students will be taking the PARCC or the DLM going forward in April.
Correct. Also, tips is I did a parent presentation in January at one of the schools. You're able to find the presentation under the parent page via the PARCC tab. In that presentation, you're able to see the samples and the difference between the comparison of what the students used to do versus what they're currently doing for PARCC, as well as one of the examples I provided is I have an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old. My 11-year-old reads for comprehension, so he can understand the content, versus my 6-year-old, he reads just to read. So he's just reading to say, okay, mama, I'm done reading, and that's it. So we need to make sure that our kids are reading for the comprehension. And that's one of the important skills that they're also being taught, then that they're being assessed in.
Are there any resources or, you know, a list of tips that we could tell parents, and maybe Nicole's a principal, you tell parents as you meet with them? For example, you know, I think it would be a good idea children went to bed at a reasonable time,
Absolutely.
The night before the assessment, had a good breakfast, got to school on time. But, you know, what are some of the other tips that we would want to share with parents?
Well, you've actually summed up pretty much all of them. I have, on our website, we're going to have our tips for our parents, like we do every year. And some of the things you said, getting a good night's sleep, not eating a sugary breakfast. Believe it or not, cereal is not a great option. You want them to have lots of protein. So, you know, something like eggs would be better than like a sugary cereal, because they'll crash. They'll come in hyper and then they'll crash mid-test. And you're right, they should be in bed by 8:30, resting their bodies, and sleep by 9. If they're going to be absent because they're sick, only if they're very ill. If they're going to be sick, please let the school know so that we can prepare for makeups. That's going to be very important. Make sure there's a backup alarm. And just to speak to what Amanda was speaking to speak to them about anxiety, test anxiety. There are lots of breathing techniques that they can use at home before they come to school. And if they happen to feel anxiety when they're there, they should focus on their breath. It's very important that our students focus on their breathing and maintain calm.
It's also important, too, as working with the schools, the teachers play a very important role in the park. And also having a good, being able to communicate with your student, your child's teacher. If you have a question about the park, calling the school, asking to meet with your child's teacher. Also, there's a document online. It's Tips for Success, and this is what we were talking about before. It has tips for your child, tips for the parent, language arts, math. So it's very important. You can find this document online on the district website, and it's called the PARCC Tips for Success, and it has various tips.
And also, you know, you say talk to the teachers. Special needs students, the accommodations are many times prepared already at the annual review of the IEP. However, parents should be, and the students should know what accommodations are going to be offered to their students. Teachers do have a PNP form The proctors will have that, and they'll be aware of what accommodations are going to be offered for each of the special needs students.
Correct. Like, for example, some of the accommodations should be a separate alternate location, frequent breaks if the child needs it. Text to speech is one of the options. Extended time. If they need a calculator in a non-calculator active portion, they will have access to a calculator as well. For our bilingual students also have accommodations. They have the word-to-word dictionary. They have native directions read in their language to them. Repeat it again if it's necessary. So there are certain things for your special ed needs child as well. They have a human reader if the child needs that particular option. The child needs to read aloud to themselves. That's also provided to them.
And these accommodations are already embedded in the test because
Correct.
of computer-based tests. So
Exactly.
everything's embedded, and each test is individualized for the student.
Correct.
So this is all prepared by our wonderful assessment department.
Yes, it is in conjunction with special ed,
Thank you.
the schools, and curriculum instruction.
So I just want to close by saying to the parents, we need to partner with you, and you need to help us so that your children are prepared. This is a serious test. You may have heard that we're not going to have the park anymore, but that decision has not been finalized yet. So it is important that your students do well and they come prepared to school so that they can achieve on the PARCC assessment. So I want to thank all of our guests that were with us today. Thank you so much for your participation. And hopefully we'll do well on the PARCC assessment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.